Deborah Robinson. I'm the Associate Dean for External Engagement. I am an ODP by background and work in the Faculty of Health and Social Care at the University of Hull. I've got Kerry with me, who's from our TEL team, so Technology Enhanced Learning team from Hull. So she might chip in. We're not 100% sure whether she will do or not. Within our faculty, certainly within the ODP team, we are very new to using PebblePad. We introduced it live in September, so the beginning of this academic year. Our midwifery team did dabble a little bit with PebblePad Classic, fell out of love with it, so stopped using it, etc. But we're starting to embrace it and to move on. So planning and discussions for us. Certainly for the ODP team, we were at curriculum review stage. So we've just moved from a 2-year DipHE programme to a 3-year BSc Honours programme. And as part of our curriculum discussions and everything else, it was, okay then, so what are we going to change? One of the things that I really wanted to change was I wanted to use technology to help us with our clinical assessments. And I wanted to move away from a paper-based assessment documentation. So that was really, really keen to me, very, very key. I had been at some national conferences with the College of Operating Department practitioners, and we were talking about different methods and different technologies that we could potentially use, and Pebble certainly was one of the things that came up on the list that people nationally were talking about. That closely followed by Google. So we set up review teams, as you would do, and we set up a separate team to look at the assessment of clinical practice and how we were going to drive this forward. And like I say, we did look at various different methods. I understand, are all of you from Bradford in the room? Most of you from Bradford? No? Some from elsewhere? Has a lot of you been involved in the ALPS project that took place? So the ALPS project was an initiative mainly of West Yorkshire University, so Bradford was certainly one of them, and there was some technology that ran alongside clinical assessment with that. So we looked at that technology as well. Was that of use to us? And we decided that we would prefer to use Pebble. So again, it was looking around who could we work with, and all that external scoping, as I've just said. We invited several companies to come into the university, as you would do if you were procuring anything. And like I say, Pebble sold it to us the best. So, importance for us about having all the stakeholders involved. Service users has popped up there for some reason. Students were our key. Within our curriculum development, and certainly within our curriculum development team, we had past students, current students, who were on the development teams for this. I will say that our first year students that were on the development team, now second year students, were quite anti moving away from that paper base, which took me by surprise, to be honest, because I was thinking, you know, a lot of them were younger students, used to technology, wanting to engage with the technology, but they liked their paper-based document and they wanted to stick with it. They saw it as being more portable, that they could take it into a clinical environment, etc. They couldn't see how they were going to take this into clinical environment. So they were quite a challenge to bring on board. Again, I guess for the ODP programme as well, not all our students are 18-year-olds leaving school, leaving college, traditional A-level students. We do have a mix. So we do attract quite a few people that maybe being healthcare assistants working in an operating theatre whose IT skills aren't necessarily the best, and we have to do a lot of work with those students as well. Clinical partners was another interesting one, because again, obviously, as those of you that work in health will know about firewalls with the NHS, and trying to make sure that we're able to link with that. Some of our mentors, even though they're all degree qualified mentors, because they have to be to mentor ODP students, some of them still didn't have fantastic IT skills and were frightened of the technology. So bringing them on board. The academic team, majority of the academic team were definitely on board with this. Of course, we would have at least one member of staff who was a little bit, who don't know how is it going to work. etc. So they were, you know, they were heading up other areas of the curriculum development, and were brought along with us. And we needed to get faculty management team on board. Remember that I've said that the midwifery team had used Classic, weren't very complimentary about Classic, etc. So we needed to make sure that we'd got the dean and the departmental heads on board. Again, fortunately for me, my departmental head at the time happened to be the coordinator for the VLE for the faculty as well. So she was quite an ally for us as a team as well to move forward. Service users, we had several service users at different intervals interjecting with our curriculum development, and again the service users were a little bit, majority of them could see the benefits of, but some again were questioning how was the technology going to work. Were students going to be spending all their time on iPads or technology and not looking after them when they wanted them in an operating theatre? You know, so it sparked up quite some interesting conversations. So, to change or not to change? Did we go with the existing documentation? But we were making changes. That documentation that we had was absolutely horrendous. I will say horrendous for the students. It was made up of 8 learning outcomes, subsectioned into performance criteria. And for that particular document as well, for each assessment, so every semester, brand new document, a brand new 8 sets of learning outcomes with the performance criteria, and we expected the student to write something for every performance criteria, which in itself was probably over-assessment. We needed to make sure that the students were competent in all of those areas, but did they really need to write something for all of those areas? So we wanted to make quite a few changes, and we decided that we might as well do the online assessment tool at the same time. So the changes that we made, we introduced a traffic light system, so that students are on green. Is there any issue? Are they needing extra support? Are they then moving to amber? Is a student definitely failing? Are they moving to red? So we needed to incorporate that. So could we get that traffic light system into the virtual world? The answer is yes, we have got a traffic light system into the virtual world. And then the next big thing, what about signatures? Our mentors were very much, I want to be able to sign that piece of paper. So we did, we worked with Patrick, who's also from the TEL team, who couldn't come today unfortunately. He's done an awful lot of work on our online workbook, and he was absolutely ecstatic at being able to put signatures in, so that the staff were able to put signatures in, etc. At the end of the first semester, the signatures now have come out, partly because we had issues with them disappearing, etc. Now it was set up that in theory they would only disappear if the student made a change to the document, because the workbook was their document, etc. But the students were telling us, they were promising us that they'd not made any changes, etc. And we were tracking, and we couldn't actually see that they were making any changes. So we've moved away from the actual signature and everything else. So, but it is available. It does work. You can get it to work. We decided to keep it smart and simple. We thought that was the best way to go forward. The actual workbook itself is one big workbook, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So who owns the workbooks and who can input into them? Yeah, the students do own the workbook. Every page, any page that the mentor is then going to write on, the student has to publish to Atlas for the mentors to write on that page. But what we expect is that the student puts some dialogue on that page that says, this is where, a reflection, this is where I'm at, and everything. Now that, if I flip back, that causes a little bit of problem with the ownership, because the mentors wanted to be able to write on the mentor discussion pages, etc. And we've kept it that the page is still owned by the students, but the student, like I say, now puts a dialogue on there, makes a comment, and publishes it to Atlas for the mentors to log into Atlas and to write onto that. So I'll be interested to see if anybody's doing it differently, so that the mentors can definitely write on the workbooks today. So adoption, how did it go? What we did with the students was we set up some workshops. We brought our first years and our second years together, which I wouldn't necessarily say was potentially the best thing to have done. First years were all giddy, they were all excited, they were all waiting to go. They would be, they'd started university 3 weeks ago and they were about to go out to practice, etc. Second years were, what have you done to us? Where's my paper book gone? Etc. So getting them in their classroom together, all on PCs, all logging in, all having a go at the same time, was quite interesting. And we decided to go do a little bit of suck it and see as well. Because at that point, when the second years were, for want of a better phrase, bumping gums, we thought, shall we, the paper base was still there, it was still in print, we haven't got rid of it. Did we just go back and say, well, okay, then you take your paper base away? But we decided, no, we'll go for it. So we did. Clinical staff, email addresses is something that we've still got to bottom out, I guess. Because what we have done is we've allowed one of our trusts to let the staff give us their personal email addresses. Now, I'm not happy with that, but the rest of the team were quite comfortable. For me, for verification purposes, I think it needs to be the trust email address. The argument back was that particular trust don't use their email addresses. So we won't name the trust and we won't go there, but yeah, it was quite interesting, and that will be changing as we move forward. Fortunately for the ODP team, we have clinical practice educators. So some of you will know about placement learning facilitators out there. Clinical practice educators for ODP are people that are employed in theatres and look after the students actually in the operating theatre itself. It's a hangover from a previous style of education for ODPs, and it's something that we were lucky that we've been able to keep this person. So again, when it comes to what does the set look like within PebblePad, do we make the placement area the set, or do we make the student the set? And again, I think, thinking forward, if I was to now implement this across the rest of the faculty, we've gone the opposite way. We've gone the way that we shouldn't do, because we've made the student the set. Okay, so the student stays static, and as they move from mentor to mentor, the mentor is attached to the student. Now, the intention was that the clinical practice educators would do that role for us. They're the ones on site, they're the ones that knows that Jane's gone off sick and Bob's going to take over, so they can quickly, smoothly change that set for that student and attach the mentor to the student. However, we had one clinical practice educator who happened to be on nights. Everything was up, tickety-boo, we were ticking along. He went in and he could see every student, because of course he would, because he had that level of permission. He thought he shouldn't be able to see every student, so he went in and deleted all the students except his 6 students. So, not a massive cohort, we're talking just short of 70 students, but you imagine those other 60 students, and not his 6 to 10 students, receiving an email at 11 o'clock at night saying your workbook has been deleted. Panic. So they all come into, contact university the next day because they're actually out in practice. We set it all up again, it's all fine, a bit of work for us, let's calm down and everything, send him an email. He doesn't pick up his email, he comes back onto nights the next night and they're all there again. Oh my god, what's going on? PebblePad's broken! Let's delete everybody again. Students again, up in arms. So the second years are giving it, I told you so, it's rubbish, we don't want it to work and everything. So we had to change the permissions for the clinical practice educators. So that now means one of our administrators is the one that attaches the mentors to the students and everything. Going forward, with our hundreds of nursing students, when we do adopt it for nursing, I think that's going to be an awful lot of work for an administrator. To have the placement area as the set and put the students in is possibly going to be the way to go. The reason why we didn't do it was because our placement areas thought that they wanted to maintain confidentiality between the mentor and the student and didn't want all the mentors to be able to see the students' books. So that's the rationale for going the way that we did. Placement visits, yeah, we went out, as I imagine you've all done this, you've gone out, you've met with your mentors, you've done some workshop with your mentors to get them on board. And again, I guess for us it was suck it and see. You can go out all you like, you can show them what it looks like, but until actually in the middle of it, using it, feeling it, then you don't get a sense for what it's like and everything. University staff, well, can I say any more? Yeah, some of us on the team were really on board with it, like I said. We've got a couple of people that, should I say older? Because no, they're not that much older than me, but on the team, but didn't really want to embrace with the technology and everything. So where are we so far? University staff has ranged from, it's not working, I told you so, it is working now, but you know, in those initial few weeks when the clinical practice educator deleted the students and we'd got a few issues with email addresses, hyphenation of email addresses was quite interesting in names wise, but Pebble have sorted that now, so I understand. So if you had somebody with a hyphenated surname, it wouldn't work, the email address wouldn't work, but it does now. And then ranging to, okay, Houston, we've got a problem, how do we fix it? So that was usually our Becky, our younger academic in the team, who would be straight on the phone to the TEL team and saying, this isn't working, what can we do, how can we fix it? And Patrick would either go, yeah, we can do this, and we can sort it, or he'd go, I haven't got a clue, I'm on to PebblePad. And then we'd be getting straight on to PebblePad to sort out how do we make something work, and everything else. Clinical staff, we had a little bit of, what is this? If I can't log into it today at work, I'm not going to use it, because we've got some issues where some of them either didn't verify the emails when they came through that said you've now got access to, and you've got to go and play with it now, sort of thing. So we had a few issues along those lines. We haven't got any mentors now that are dissenting. So in a semester and a half, almost 2 semesters, we've got all of our mentors on board. And then there's quite a lot. This is great, I can log in to suit me. So basically, some of our mentors used to take the students' workbooks home, their assessment books, they would do it at home. I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do and everything, but if that suited them for their time, but things go missing, things get lost, etc. If they've got a little bit of downtime, so say an operating list finishes early, they'll log on and they'll do the work, as I like to say, to suit them. Students. First years adopted it, it went down really well. They had this real sense that they thought they had a lot of work to do and everything. And then they just spoke to the second years. And the second years explained how much written work that they used to have to do. So each of those outcomes are still there in the assessment tool. So we've reduced from 8 learning outcomes a semester down to 6. We've got the performance criteria underneath each one exactly the same, but now we've got an option that, has it been discussed, is it being observed, is there some written work to support that, and for each learning outcome there's a 500-word reflection that the students write in agreement with their mentor about how they've achieved that particular learning outcome. The second years, what we've done with the workbook is we've got a tracking system so they can see exactly how much they've completed. Now, the problem that we've come across with that is we've done one workbook. So the workbook has got a subsection in there, so almost like a chapter for each semester. But the second years are obviously halfway through that workbook already. So when it came to tracking, it was saying that they were only 8% complete, and they knew they'd completed everything for that particular semester. So what actually happened then, we were to reassure the students that it's tracking the whole workbook, not just the section that you're now working on, etc. So you'll only ever get to 50% because 50% is from the first year, etc. for them, if they're on a diploma course. What else did we find? A lot of the second years now are saying it feels like a lot less work because they haven't got all that written stuff. The side effect to that, we had a couple of students who left their academic assignment. So they do a practice assessment and an academic assignment at the same time each semester. And because of the workload before being quite heavy with the practice books, they used to really have to manage the time very, very well. They took the foot off the gas with the practice because it was less arduous for them to do. And then a side effect was some of them took the foot off the gas with the theory assignment as well, because they were thinking, oh, it's a lot easier, I've got more time, etc. So we had a few that had a bit of panic at the end of semester 1. Would you go back to paper version? 95%. So that's probably about 3 students out of all of them that are saying no, but 95% are saying absolutely no way do I want to go back to that paper version. We're absolutely loving it. So, Kerry, did you want to say what you said on the train to me? Come in.
Well, I was in hospital not so long back, and I was in there for about 3 weeks. And I was on the trolley waiting to go to the operating theatre. And this lady introduced herself as one of the LDP students. I said, oh, PebblePad guinea pig then. And she looked at me, so real life. And then the mentor says, oh, it's great. And the student says, oh, it's great. And the mentor said, well, we don't have to sit in the corner now, writing up, we can do it all together. So that's real life for you. So we love it out there.
So that's where we're at, really. Like I say, we're still pretty new at it. I guess what's going to happen faculty-wise now, clinical psychology are talking to the TEL team about developing their assessments. Midwifery are going to come on board and go back to using Pebble. Our community programmes have just been revalidated. They're all going to be using Pebble, as are our practice teacher programmes. The next big hurdle for us, I guess, within faculty is our nursing programmes. We do all 4 fields of nursing, and they are currently going through a curriculum review. So as part of their practice assessment, they're going to be moving to using PebblePad as well, and everything. So yeah, it's interesting times, but I'm sold.
Fantastic.
Have you got any questions for me?
Yeah, I do. You probably said this and I missed it. Your mentors in practice,
Yeah.
do they have their own PebblePad account?
Yes.
All right, so you've given them an account?
Yes, they've all got an account.
Right.
So
Does that fit in with the licence?
Sometimes people students set them up as externals, don't they?
yeah,
I was going to say actually this whole issue of managing the sets with all these externals and students coming and going between different cohorts and subsets and things through the year is something that's been raised many times, and myself and Debbie wrote up a paper recently for the development team to say, can we have something that is more around group management at a higher level, so that those kind of the different groups of academic staff, clinical staff and students can be managed a bit more effectively and fall into workspaces in sets easier, so a higher level of group management, which may eventually come into sort of placement management, but that's further downstream. So that hopefully will come through at some stage.
Okay. I mean, the one thing that I've not said, this is something that we will be getting to as well. In the 3rd year for the ODP programme, the final semester, because we still run over 3 trimesters really, or 3 terms as opposed to semesters, that final semester is a practice consolidation semester, and it's aligned to the HCPC CPD audit, etc. So the students coming out of the programme shouldn't, if they follow what we've done with that, shouldn't have any issues if they're called for audit by by the HCPC further down the line, and they will be able to use their PebblePad accounts to continue with building those CPD portfolios, etc.
I think it's a great idea giving the placement manager their own account. It's a brilliant way of building sort of a team there.
Yeah.
It's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Can you say a bit about why you chose to design the workbook the way you did?
It was partly going against what PebblePad did say about, don't stick with what you've got, go for something different. But we wanted, like I say, we wanted something simple. So, and it's extremely simple. So we've got all of the, like I say, the workbooks, one big workbook, So the students owning that whole workbook, they can dip into it whenever they want. They don't have to log into anywhere different, etc. It also means they can share what they've done in the past with their new mentors and everything. And we've literally got sliders against every learning outcomes, the performance criteria. I've got a met, not met slider, and then one for the whole outcome. And then we've got sliders as well to say whether it's discussed, observed, written, and if it's written, then we've obviously got the rosettes. The rosettes will indicate to the mentor that there's something there to read, etc.
So is do they get the whole thing at the beginning, or do you release it?
Bit by bit. They potentially, in the future, will get the whole thing. At the moment, they're getting it bit by bit, pure and simply because we're writing it bit by bit to keep up with the programme and everything. But students starting in September will certainly get at least year 1 and year 2 elements of the workbook. So, but we've always made our whole practice assessment available to the students. We used to print off copies of the whole programme for practice and give them hard copies and make PDF copies available online. So, there's a hand going up at the back.
Oh, I was curious, I think Jackie was asking this too. Do you make the workplace mentors, are they externals on the system, or are you actually getting...
Yeah, our external examiner is on the system. So we've made the external examiner, given them basically the same status as a lecturer. So they can go in and they've gone in, they've put comments on the students' PebblePad.
But so they don't have to have a full account, you can just add them
Yeah.
onto the workspace?
Yeah. So we've added them onto the workspace. So yeah, and his feedback's been really good. It's been good direct to the students and good back to us for the boards and things like that. So that's worked well. So.
Can I just in terms of the Pebble Pocket, have you experimented yet with using that?
I haven't experimented with it yet. If Becky was here, was part of the team, she would say yeah, she's playing with it at this moment in time.
I loaded a picture from our hospital bed.
Too much detail from
Destination plan.
Dedication.
So some of the students have tried it, do you think?
Yeah, some of the students have tried it. We're going into tutorials next week, so that'll be when we're picking up again where we're at with things. And that's the other good thing about this as well. Our students, geographically, Hull, our students are spread quite wide and far. Probably not as much as some of the other allied health where physio and radiographer can end up going long distances, but our patch for placements is Hull, it's Bridlington, it's Scarborough, it's York, it's Grimsby, Scunthorpe, Goole, etc. If we've had a problem, say with the students, and we've not physically been able to get there quickly to the student, we can log into Atlas, we can see what's going off, we can have Atlas up, we can have student on Skype or on the phone, we can have mentor Skype and phone, and we can tripartite that way as well. Whereas with a paper copy, we wouldn't know unless they held it up in front of Skype what we're talking about and things. So again, that's another advantage that we've come across recently. So, yeah.
You mentioned that student workbooks were deleted. What was the recovery process like?
What was the what, sorry?
The recovery process. How long did it take for the workbooks?
Next morning. Andrea, who is our programme administrator, has worked very closely with Patrick, and she was able to get them straight back and everything else. So recovery was quite good, quite smooth, and second time round it was even faster.
It wouldn't have actually been deleted though, would it? It would have just been removed from the workspace, wouldn't it?
I think some of them had actually been deleted as
Good
well.
effort.
Yeah, it was a really good effort.
Wow.
A really good effort. So, yeah. Yeah, it was certainly interesting.
You mentioned that you had your sets based around the student.
Yeah.
We took that approach to start with at York, and we've now switched, so we have practice area sets.
Yeah.
And we did find that a lot more straightforward to manage.
Yeah, and that's what I'm acknowledging, that I think for the big numbers, certainly for the nursing numbers, that's the way that we're probably going to have to go. Because I think we did have a conversation. I met with Fiona.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
We did a bit of sharing. and things. So yeah, certainly I think for our nursing students, I think the issue with theatres is that, say, if you take Hull Royal, for example, you've got 9 theatres on a corridor, you then may have possibly between 30 and 50 mentors. So all those mentors would have access to the number of students, however many we've got on placement there at the time, at the same time. So it was the placement areas that said we don't want it to be this way. But I think for nursing it's definitely going to have to go the other way. And I guess for standardisation across faculty, everybody will have to do the same thing. So I think the placement area will become the sets. Now whether we can say, we'll say, take Hull Royal as an example, 9 theatres, well we say theatre 1 is one set, theatre 2 is another set, but then we've got staff that move between the theatres. The anaesthetic staff don't stay stagnant, whereas the scrub staff might stay stagnant, say in 1 and 2 where neuro takes place, or speciality driven. So that's work in progress. Yeah.
How do you manage your data? How does it get into PebblePad? Do you do it from another system, or is PebblePad integrated with anything else?
We're using Sakai as our VLE, and we can launch straight from Sakai. So straight from, we call it eBridge. So straight from our eBridge site, it launches straight into PebblePad. Originally it took us to the web link and then to link, but now it's one click straight in. So that's working really well. Although we're just reviewing our VLE at the moment, so whether we stay with Sakai or move to something different. But I guess the thing that the TEL team will be, because they're the ones that are driving the VLE review, they're well aware of PebblePad, and we'll make sure that whatever we get, the 2 systems work together. There's nothing worse, I think, for somebody to then have to start clicking lots of clicks or to go to different websites. As far as the student's concerned, it's all got to look the same. If it's working on different systems in the background, fair enough, but from a student point of view, it's got to look the same.
Very good. Thank you very much
Thank
indeed,
you.
Deborah. That's terrific.